Welcome to Things My Mother Forgot to Mention.
The podcast where we say everything our mothers didn't.
I'm Jan, a trauma therapist and author turned rogue storyteller, here to talk openly about the body, aging, and all the, wait, what? Moments of womanhood.
And I'm Patty, an online business and tech nerd whose purpose is to elevate the voices of women in our world and who doesn't believe in taboo topics. Things My Mother Forgot to Mention is the podcast for every woman who's ever said, wait, why didn't anyone mention this to me?
Join Jan and Patty, two outspoken, curious, outrageous women, as they dive headfirst into a messy, magical, and often WTF realities of aging, health, and quite simply being a woman.
From rogue chin hairs and vaginal thinning
to mental health, perimenopause, and scalp cancer. Yes, really.
Nothing is off limits. It's funny, it's raw, it's real talk your mother definitely skipped.
Let's get into it.
Hello, Jan.
Hey there, Patty. It seems like I haven't seen you in a while.
I don't think we have seen each other in a while because you went on a cruise.
Yeah, I went to Alaska on a cruise, which was really great. And I forgot all about everything. And it was wonderful.
That's amazing. That's the point of going on a cruise or a good vacation is to forget about all the things.
Yeah. And you were reminding me today of what we're talking about, which is coming of age and just all these memories just start flooding me.
Yeah? Well, like what? What's like one of the most like prevalent memory that kind of came rushing back when we were talking about it?
Coming of age? I would have to say for me, and then I'm going to ask you, when I started my period. And my mom, I remember I was in gym and I was in seventh or eighth grade. And I remember, now I don't even know, there's 30 years between us.
Yeah.
And did you ever have required gym when you were in seventh or eighth grade? Okay.
Oh, yeah.
So we had to wear these little snap-on bloomers on the bottom with a top. We had this whole kind of...
We just had shorts and a t-shirt.
No, these were freaking like bloomers. They were elastic at the waist and then elastic around the thighs, and they snapped up the front. Anyway, long story short, I remember, taking it off and seeing, oh my God, what is it? I'm bleeding. And I didn't know what it was. And I remember going home and I thought, oh, this must be what women do when they get a menstrual period. It was like, wow. And I went home and I remember I can even see my mother. She was standing at the stove and I told her about it. And she goes, oh, wait till I tell your father. And I was like mortified because I didn't want my dad to know, because then I know, because my dad would be worried about me getting pregnant. That I know he would just be right away. He'd be like, oh my God, now I really got to keep an eye on her. So that was my first memory of probably, growing up. How about you? What's your good memory?
Is that a good memory though?
No, I don't think so.
I mean, yeah, boy, oh boy. So I have a lot of memories with like puberty and the coming of age stuff and like, I don't even period wise, I can't remember. I mean, I knew about it because, we had health classes and things like that. So I knew, and I was a late bloomer with that. I can't remember what age, but I knew that most of my friends had their period already.
Yes.
So I was like, come on, man, let's go. What's happening?
Let's get with the program.
Yeah, because, you're always anxious to grow up until you grow up and they're like, oh, damn it. I wish I could.
Wasn't grown up. Yes, that's true.
Yeah. So I remember when I got it, my mom had talked to me about it. So my mom did not forget to mention period stuff for me. So I knew about using pads and stuff like that. And because I don't think she used tampons, she used pads too. So we had pads, but they were different. They were thin and had wings and, whatever. Because I know your pads had little wings.
My pad... they were disgusting 30 years before that because they were you'd tie them with a belt, and you'd wear a belt and you'd pull it through this hook, and it was just like one big wad that would leak everywhere.
And were they disposable or you washed them? Yeah, you would
Oh,
wash
no,
them.
you didn't wash them.
Oh,
You could not, you couldn't throw them in the toilet because they were huge.
but so
So,
but that you threw them away like you
yes,
do pads
exactly, exactly,
regularly. Okay.
exactly.
Yeah, yeah,
Hmm.
yeah. Okay. Um, yeah, so I remember when I got mine, I saw it and I was like, "Oh, all right." And I guess I put on a pad. I don't remember the actual what had
Moment.
happened, but I
Yeah.
remember sitting there on the toilet in the bathroom thinking, "Oh my goodness, I can." And I've never wanted children. That's not something that
I'm
I've
gonna
ever
have a
been.
baby now.
But just knowing like I was like I can make life and like I
Yeah.
was really blown away by that and like the fact that my
Yeah, good.
body could do this. And so I remember that moment. That was the thing that really stood out to me. And even though I didn't want children, that wasn't something, although I don't know at that age that I was like I do or don't. But it wasn't ever something I was like, I want a baby. Um, but I do remember that moment just appreciating my body
Hmm.
and how freaking incredible it is that it could do that.
Yes,
I just
that
kept
is true.
thinking, and I was just
It
like,
is
I
a
could have a
miracle.
baby in here. What? That's
What?
crazy. Yeah, it was just
Great life.
bonkers to me. So I remember that. That really stood out for me because it was probably one of the first moments I ever really sat and appreciated my body and the things that it could do, you know?
Hmm. Yeah, no, but it is a miracle. I
Yeah,
just became a grandmother 3 weeks ago, and it's just amazing that you can create such a beautiful creature. They're
yeah.
so tiny, and they come out, and it's unbelievable, and only women can do it.
I know, right? Yeah, it's pretty incredible. So that was a really big standout thing for me. But then once I had my period, I was really lucky. A lot of women have terrible PMS and cramps and I really it was pretty unremarkable for me. Like I had period like I'd have cramps and sometimes I'd get nauseous, PMS and
Hmm.
stuff, but I was pretty like whatever, I could do whatever, like it was just really not a big deal for me. So I was really lucky because I know that's not the
Yeah,
case for a lot of women.
like
Yeah.
me.
Yeah. So what was that like for you?
Well, I had such bad cramps, and of course, the pads that you used would leak all over. They didn't have wings. I don't know that people know what wings are, but the wings came in probably, I don't know, 20 years ago. But anyway,
Mm.
uh, I ended up being having to go on the pill because
Mm.
of how much pain I was in, and had what is it called? Not diverticulosis, but it was called, I can't remember the name for when women have really bad cramps. And
Mm.
anyway, but it was,
PCOS? No, not PCOS.
no, but I'll remember it in just a minute. But it was hard. And I remember then having all these complications with pills because back 30 years ago, they were
Mm.
horrendous. They were
Right.
just horrific and what they did to your body. So I got off of that and I guess I just sucked it up.
Yeah.
But when tampons came in, boy, was I ever happy because a friend of mine, I think I already said this before on one of our shows,
Mm-hmm.
a friend of mine had me in the bathroom and
Oh,
said that if
right.
you don't put this in there, I'm coming in there and doing it for you. And I was like, oh my God, I'm not going to do that. So of course, I made it happen. So anyway,
That's
but
funny. Yeah. I've never used tampons before because as we've talked about in previous episodes, because of some of my childhood things and the scarred tissue I was told that I had, I was always afraid to like
oh,
use a tampon because I was like, well, obviously that's not going to be comfortable or whatever. So I just did it and I just always had pads and it sucked. I mean, having pads was crappy and whatever, but
right.
whatever, it is what it is. And they were more advanced than when you were having them before
Yes.
and like, and then, yeah, they weren't overly thick or, I mean, sometimes they were. And I did go through in my kind of what I call my hippie days in my 20s, like I did go through a period of using ones that you wash.
What?
Yeah.
I've never heard of such a thing. Oh my
Yeah.
God.
Yeah, because I was really into sustainability and I mean I still am, but not in that form. Although I have an IUD now, so I don't have my period. But like then, yeah, it was like probably what I would imagine you experienced, and it was like basically this fabric. outline, and then you'd have these fabric inliners. So then you put it inside the fabric so that it builds this. They're very clunky and chunky, and then you just take it and wash it. Like you rinse it first, and then you put it in the washing machine. I tried
Oh,
really hard to be sustainable in that way, but it was a little too much for me. Like getting comfortable with my blood was a lot, but then on top of that, because I'd have to wash it, you know. Yeah, anyway, not to gross people out, but that was something that I tried for a little bit. So I went back to earth destructing pads. I don't care. I'm sorry, Earth. But so much better. So, but yeah, tampons I just never, and then by the time it didn't matter and I wasn't afraid of using tampons. I was just comfortable. I just was used to pads. So I was like, and then I think I was worried about like the toxic shock syndrome thing or whatever by that point because I'd heard about that. And I was like, I'm good, dude. Like, I'll just stick with, with pads.
right, right. Okay, I just looked up while I was talking to you
Hmm.
what I was talking about. It was called
Oh,
endometriosis.
oh, endometriosis. Yeah, yeah.
Yes, a disorder in which tissue similar to the tissues that lines the uterus grows outside the uterus in places where it doesn't belong. And it may, and when people have heavy periods or irregular menstruation
Yeah.
or cramps, sometimes that's an indicator. So,
Yeah. 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 I have one of my best friends has endometriosis, and the pain involved in that I hear
hmm
is just
hmm
terrible
hmm
beyond.
Yep,
Yeah.
it is. So,
And birth control helped with that for you.
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. But like I said, then the birth control pills back 30 years ago they were just a new thing,
Yeah.
and so I went on that for only just a bit, and I couldn't take that. It didn't really
Yeah.
help much, so I like got rid of that. So
Yeah.
I guess I just sucked it up. I don't know.
Yeah. You do what you got to do. We were young. You just deal with it, I
You
guess.
just deal with it, don't you? Isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so how are you in coming of age like with bras and I we wore girdles. Now I
Yeah.
know I know that's now they're called Spanx or panties.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Hmm.
But yeah, so did you have an experience with that?
No, I didn't have those. I mean, I had just bras. Like I think I got a training bra. I remember I was still I had to have been 11 maybe. I think when I started boobs coming in. Because I remember I went over to my next door neighbor's house and my mom and her they were on like her back porch and I was running up the stairs and I heard my mom's friend say to my mom, her daughter's name was Nell, and she's like, well, Nell started bouncing like that. I knew, and I was like, oh dear. Like,
Bouncing.
it was just not something I had thought of. I was 11, but apparently I was starting to have boobs, so I was bouncing a little bit. And so at that point, they were like, oh, training bra time. So I got a training bra.
Were you embarrassed or shamed when
I
they
got,
said that?
I think I was probably embarrassed.
Yeah.
I don't remember my feelings alongside it, but I remember being like, I must have been because it's still in my head and it's been a
Yeah, it
long
is.
time.
It is.
But
I
yeah,
mean
I
that
remember kind of going, oh, something happening here that's notable. And I was just a kid running up the stairs. I
sure.
wasn't thinking about things bouncing about.
You know, thinking
Like,
about, coming of age and, growing up and getting breasts and
yeah.
I know I would think about, let's see, fifth grade. How old are you in fifth grade? 10? Maybe 10? I can't remember.
Yeah, probably about
Maybe
10.
10. Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember there was a woman who she had started her period in fifth grade
Oh,
and she had
wow.
big breasts. Oh my gosh. And every guy, you couldn't, it would talk about it, in fifth
Mm,
grade and sixth grade. And it was like as girls got breasts and started their periods, usually those kind of come together. And
yeah.
all of a sudden, all the boys are talking about all the girls with the boobs. And that was not me. That didn't happen to me. I went until I was eighth grade. I think I was like 13. So,
Mm. Oh,
so of course she had all the dates, she was the one that was most popular with the boys, with the
right,
boobs, because
right.
they're all thinking maybe there's an opportunity here for me or something.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Which I think is so interesting because, there's this like the idea that we want those advances. Like, like she got all the dates, but maybe she didn't want them all because all of a sudden they were all like, you have boobs, now you're value of some sort. Like, they didn't see you before, but now you have
Right.
boobs.
Of
So
course, they didn't
therefore,
see her
you're
before. They didn't see any of
desirable.
us. Right. And now
Yeah.
all of a sudden they're desirable. Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
It's kind of a weird thing. I remember I had this, so so this is an embarrassing moment I had related to boobs. So I I was in middle school. I think I was maybe sixth grade. I think I was sixth grade. And I remember that I was with my friends in, quotes, girls in my
Yeah.
class pretty
Yeah.
much at that point, and they were talking about, and I was kind of new to the school because I'd moved halfway through the year and stuff like that. So I didn't know them very well, but I was in this conversation with them or overhearing it, and they were talking about how, as they said, their eyes change color in the shower. And they were saying, yeah,
Their eyes change color in the shower.
right. So they were
Whoa.
talking about their areolas, but I didn't know this because I'd never heard areolas called eyes before. So I'm sitting here and I'm listening to this conversation, and they're like, "Oh yeah, my eyes turn brown sometimes when I'm in the shower, and oh, mine get more pink." And I'm, sixth
You're
grade, and so
right.
like
You're like
whatever. And I
clueless.
have hazel actual eyes
Yeah.
that go, sometimes they're blue, sometimes they're green. So I chime in and I say, "Oh, mine, and I don't know about the shower, but mine are sometimes blue and sometimes green." And they all laughed at me because they're like, "We're
Ah.
talking about breasts and nipples and areolas." And
Nipples, right.
I had no clue at all. Like that wasn't a conversation I'd ever had or I'd never heard of. And maybe it was like I was from Chicago, so maybe it was a California thing. So I was in California. Like maybe that's a thing that they call. I still to this day have never heard anybody call areolas eyes before. So
No, this is my first.
yeah,
I'm
but so I
learning this.
remember that because I was just like, just poor innocent little Patty was like, my eyes change colors too.
That'd be something I would have said too. I've never
It
heard of
was
that
really
before.
funny. And so,
Wow.
and to this day, now I'm like, oh, do my eyes change colors in the shower? Like, so it's not
Are
something
you
I really,
checking that out in the shower? Good.
yeah,
You'll have to report back to us. No.
yeah. The follow-up episode just about Patty's eyes.
Right. Wow. There you go.
Yeah, yeah. So that was interesting. But I think, as far as like any kind of girdles or spade. I mean, I'm sure I've worn like shapewear and things like that, because
Hmm.
of my stomach and weight things, but like overall, not really. Like,
Hmm.
it was really nice. My friend and I, we would like when I was in high school, we'd go, and when we started having a little bit of money, we'd go to like Mervyn's was the store back then that we'd go to, which is like I don't know, like a Kohl's or something, I guess.
Yeah.
And get like little bras, like little pretty bras and things that have no support, but I didn't really need it yet,
Right, right,
So
right.
like,
Exactly.
yeah.
Exactly.
And I remember doing that a lot and I enjoyed
Yeah.
that. And it was always fun to have fun, pretty little bras that nobody
Well,
would
we
ever
didn't
see.
have pretty little bras. We didn't have
Mm,
those. God, I feel ancient. Anyway, uh, so we had, and I was telling this before we started this, I remember it came when we were in eighth grade, and I can't even remember what it was called, but we were learning how to dance, and it was
hmm.
on the weekends, and it was boys and girls, and we'd go to this big kind of auditorium and we'd have a teacher teach us how to dance, and it was something eh, called something, and everybody wanted to do it because 13, 12, and 13, you know what that means. Hormones are
Hmm.
raging for the guys and
Yeah.
for the girls and everything. And I remember I finally got a pair of heels because you couldn't wear heels. My mom said, okay, fine. And then she took me shopping. So she did talk to me about these things and didn't forget to mention we went shopping and we wore those girdles.
Mm.
And not like you're that big. I was that big when I was
Yeah.
12 and 13. Anyway, but we would with it would be those nylons that were came up to your thigh, and then you took the hooks on the girdle and hooked it in the front and in the back. And
Yeah.
I thought that was the coolest thing. I thought that was really cool with the training bras, which were just plain and not
Hmm.
too exciting, and the heels. And of course, I did wear a dress or something,
Right, sure.
it to me it blows my mind to think of how far we've come from girdles like that. I mean, who does that except maybe I don't know, maybe it's people who dress up in black. and they
Yeah.
have a,
Yeah.
a
Well,
sexual
I
ritual or
think
something.
you're right when you called it Spanx. I mean, it's the same thing. So a
Yeah.
lot of people do. I mean, I was at uh
But we have pantyhose. We didn't have pantyhose back then.
oh. Oh, because the
Pantyhose.
nylons, right? You'd have
Yeah, they were
to,
nylons. They
right.
were just, you pulled them up. So
Yeah.
pantyhose, or you can get pantyhose with some kind of,
Tummy top
tummy
control.
tuck and all that, right?
Yeah,
And
yeah,
we
yeah.
did not have that. But anyway, it was, and I remember feeling a little bit of shame. I was thinking, I felt mostly kind of embarrassed and shamed about going through puberty
Hmm.
because I felt like, well, my father had a lot to do with that,
Yeah.
with what, would be like thinking I'm going to go out and get pregnant. So he's like got his, evil eyes on me. And
Right.
and it was just, everybody was talking about it in front of me, like you bouncing up the stairs.
Yeah.
And I felt like even showing bra straps with now women are doing this. They wear, bra straps hanging open or just the bra
Yeah.
or,
Yeah.
and it's amazing what people wear. And back then we were a little more conservative.
Right.
But I
Yeah.
felt a lot of shame, embarrassment for kind of being talked about and like, oh, Jan's now become a woman, that kind of
Mm.
thing. So,
Well, I wonder if it's partially because you weren't being involved in the conversation. You were being talked about in front of you.
yes, you too. I mean, I was thinking
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
It was like, and I don't know. It must be, maybe it was more of my family of origin and my mom and not talking about it, or my dad just kind of staring at me. Maybe that was what it was. But I really felt like embarrassed mostly. And
Yeah.
getting my period, then when she said what she did, I was like, okay, that's it. You
Yeah.
know, I don't want I said, Mom, please don't tell him. Oh no, I have to tell him, he'll be so happy for you. I'm like, yeah, right. But
Yeah.
anyway.
Yeah, it's interesting. For me, it felt like almost like a badge of honor. Like I was
Hmm.
excited. Like I said, I felt behind when I was getting my period, and I was like, "Come on, everybody else has their period," and like I want to get my period already because it meant like you were growing up and you
Hmm.
were a
Hmm.
woman and you were these things. And so for me, I don't think I had much shame around that
Hmm.
and going through that. It was like, come on, let's do this already, and like wanting to shave before I really had the hair
Oh,
to
right.
shave,
Shaving. Oh my
like
God.
I remember asking my mom, and then I was probably sixth or seventh grade, so I remember I can see myself, and so I know I was in, yeah, sixth or seventh grade based on where I was living. And I was trying to like shave, and mom was like, you don't have enough hair to shave. And she
Don't
was
cut
like,
yourself.
yeah, and she was like that is now really kind of I think known to be a myth, but that idea of like, well, once you start shaving, you'll just
It's
all
gonna
the
get
hair will come
worse.
back in and it's gonna
Right.
be darker and thicker and but I didn't care. I wanted to shave because it meant I was growing up.
Right. Right. Yeah,
Uh,
for sure. I don't know. That's interesting. I think that it really wasn't really, I didn't feel celebrated and
yeah.
talked to, what you just mentioned. I think that
Mm-hmm.
really hits for me because I think of, today. I mean, I even think of things like when I was pregnant and
Yeah.
I was embarrassed in some ways because I was so big. And I
Oh
felt
yeah.
like, I wasn't my usual self and everyone's going to stare at me now. So I don't know.
Mm,
There's something about me, and like I said, that things weren't celebrated for me. And I think that, in some ways, for mothers, if they were to phrase it more like as this miracle that you can have a baby now,
yeah.
and that, being pregnant is part of the miracle process,
Yeah.
and and getting breasts that can feed a baby, all these things. But I didn't get that message from my mother.
Yeah. Yeah, and I don't know. I mean, I don't think it's a message I got directly from my mother either. I'm not sure where I didn't not get it, I guess, from her. And I think I must have gotten it from people around me. Um, yeah, it's interesting, yeah, what that looks like differently. And oddly enough, the being pregnant part, though I know I hear how very uncomfortable and awful it can be in a lot of ways, is the only part that I would have an interest in just to experience that
Huh.
to have such an experience, right? Like,
Right.
um, yeah, it's really I don't want anything once the baby arrives because, like, except for some of the
Too much
cute
work.
moments. Too much work, man. I want to sleep. I like sleeping and
Eating whatever I want to, not
yeah,
being
do what I want,
interrupted.
what I want. Yeah. But having such an experience would be, pretty remarkable, I think. But so what about shaving for you? Did you ever do
You
you remember
know,
that?
I don't really remember. That wasn't as big of a deal that I wanted to be shaving, but I don't remember that really at all. That's
Yeah.
interesting you mentioned that. You know,
Yeah.
hmm.
Interesting.
I mean,
Yeah.
also things of, pubic hair too, if we're going to be
Yeah.
talking about,
Yeah.
and so
Oh,
in gym, we're back to gym again. This
yeah.
is where you get to, and everybody wearing a towel have to take a shower. I don't know if you had to. We had to take showers. Our gym teacher would be standing there with, a board, and she would be writing them down whether you took the shower. I
Oh
mean,
my
this is,
goodness.
yes, we were tortured. No,
Oh.
but yeah, you'd had to get it checked off, and everyone's like looking at everybody, and that's the other thing
Mm,
about coming of age is
yes.
everybody's looking at everybody's
The
development from fifth grade, sixth
judgment.
grade, 17th, 18th, eighth grade, freshman year development, and
Yeah.
that was brutal, I think.
Yeah, yeah. And now that you say that, I think that's probably part of why for me I was like, come on, like I need to catch up, like people are ahead of me. And so
We're all
there was
looking.
probably a part of me that felt behind in that because I always like I was cool, briefly cool in eighth grade for some reason that I don't know why. But like outside of that, I was never a cool person and I was never like now I think I'm cool and that's all that matters. But it took me till I was in my mid 40s before I realized that. But like
I'm cool.
yeah, I'm cool. I'm cool because I say I'm cool. But back then, I was not at all. And so
Yeah.
like it was a way to feel like I was matching up to the cool girls or to the whatever. Like yeah, it's really interesting. I mean, that whole part of it when you're starting to get in there. And I think for me, because I was just so used to not being looked at, like I was very
Yeah,
overlooked because it's like when you struggle with weight stuff, you get two things that happen. One, you're looked at a lot and then thought of, made fun of, or you're really just overlooked altogether. You
overlooked.
don't stand
Yep,
out, right? So
yep.
I was kind of used to just sort of being in the shadows a little bit, or, so I think that for me, I just sort of wanted to keep up with the Joneses and that way, but was never trying to be like everybody else or be seen because there was just not a chance. I was just not cool enough for
Yeah,
that ever, which was fine. I mean, now I see that as like a badge of honor almost in the sense of like, that's cool. I was who I was, and
yes,
I
yeah.
wasn't,
You weren't trying to be what everybody else was
yeah,
doing, right?
but when you're there and you're in it and everybody is judging everybody else and everybody is looking at everybody else, it's really hard and it's
Yes.
the worst time. Being that age is just the worst. I mean, it's so confusing
It
and
is
there's
such a
so much
tough age.
happening.
It is such a tough age. I mean,
Yeah.
even my two sons, when they were going through it, my oldest went through it pretty well, but my younger son really had a hard time with it,
Yeah.
because it's an awkward stage. You're not really there yet, but then,
Hmm.
you're developing, and, it's just, I think boys probably go through something similar, but
Oh yeah.
what that's about. But it's just an awkward time. It just
Hmm.
emotionally for kids, physically, everything's
Yeah.
changing.
And you don't understand what's happening in your brain. Like it's so much and boys smell terrible. I had two brothers, teenage boys. Oh my God.
Oh gosh, you're kidding, Patty. Okay. Oh, you have that memory when you were a kid that they smell.
Well, when we were teenagers, I did just because their hormones were going
Yes.
crazy and they probably
Yes.
weren't washing their stuff all the time as much as they like, I don't know. I just remember being like, oh, sorry. I mean, my brothers aren't going to listen to this, but
And you don't. They may
teenage
not talk to
boys
you
are,
again.
yeah,
Just give them everyone their name and their address, and then
yeah,
I'm
right. Yeah.
kidding.
Here's their
No.
Facebook profile.
I mean, that's
Yeah.
another reason for hygiene. I mean, now,
Yeah.
I'm not saying that the way that they did it when I was in, high school, even in high school, I remember, with the towel and the gym teacher checking off whether we took a shower, or not,
Yeah.
and sometimes you can get, an excuse because you had a really heavy period or something, and you could not get away from it. You can get away
Mm-hmm.
from a shower. But the
Yeah.
thing is that, that's good hygiene in some ways, to teach people,
To
especially going through
bathe. Yeah.
puberty, to bathe, to
Yeah.
take a shower, to use, to
Yeah.
get into that soap and water and
Yeah.
get some of that, yeah,
Yeah,
smell
especially after a gym. Yeah. Actually,
after
and now that you say
after
that,
sweating.
yeah, yeah. Now that you say that, I didn't because I was self-conscious about my body. I hated wearing the little short, even though they
Oh,
were just normal shorts and stuff. I hated PE and because I've had like issues with my legs my whole life. And so like ever since I was young, when I run, there's like a weird cracking sound and pain
mm,
shoots up my legs. And so you'd have to like run laps and stuff like that. And I would always be last because as soon as I would start running, it would have that and I'd stop and limp and I'd have to walk, like, and so I was always self-conscious about that because I always felt like, oh, people are gonna be like, oh, the fat girl can't. I'm like, I'm trying to run, damn it. I just can't. But like, so I hated PE because it was so vulnerable for me in that way. Because not only did I have to be in shorts, which I didn't like and self-conscious, but I couldn't keep up with everybody because of my leg stuff. And so I did. I had way more periods, quote unquote periods, than any normal
right.
girl
I have them
would
like three
because
times a
anything
month
I
to
could
get out of gym, right?
yeah, whatever I could say to get out of gym or swimming, that was because we had to
Oh,
swim
swimming, that would
too.
be the
Oh
big thing.
no,
Yeah.
thank you very much. Yeah, and a bathing
Right.
suit? No
Yeah.
way.
Well, I
Yeah.
was, believe it or not, a cheerleader when I was in eighth grade. So I was one
Well,
of
you
those.
were popular, so I
I was
make that. Yeah.
popular. Yes. I was one of those popular kids. And then when high school, I was not in the brainiac crowd. I was in the popular crowd. So, looking good and checking out others' bodies and all that was all
Yeah.
part of, of the game, But anyway.
Yeah. Yeah. I didn't even like wear makeup hardly. Like I didn't even know. I still don't even know how to do makeup properly.
Well, it's just a pain. But
Yeah, I
it's true.
never.
Then you can do makeup and wear heels and do all those things. I thought,
Yeah.
oh, once I get there, my life's gonna change.
Yeah,
But
yeah. I
anyway.
was never graceful, and so for me, wearing heels, I would fall. I remember I bought these boots that I was so excited for, and they had these big heels, and I was a young teenager, and like these big platform boots, and I was like, yeah, I'm finally. I guess I did want to be
Cool.
cool sometimes because I think I was finally like, I'm cool. Yeah, right down the stairs.
Oh no. Ouch. Well,
Because my little ankle, because that's part of my, I have really weak ankles because I'm double this whole thing. Anyway, so anything like that or without shoes without backs, I'm flying, I'm falling. So like for me, it was just the easiest. Like I had to go through all of that and like trying to dress up and trying to do these. And I'm just not that kind of person. Like I hate it. You'll never see me in a dress unless it's a comfy whatever dress. Like I'm just not that kind of person. And so, yeah, for school at that point, I was just like,
I mean, this is
whatever, I
part
give
of
up.
this is I was just thinking as you're talking, this is part of coming of age too,
Yeah.
is just, all the cliques that are in
Mm-hmm.
school and kind
Yeah.
of where do you land? Are you
Yeah.
a brainiac? Are you we called them the hippies,
Yeah.
the people that were really out there. And then there's
We
the
called them the
jocks.
stoners.
And
Yeah.
then the jocks, and then there's so many different groups. And which
Mm-hmm.
one did you fit in, And
Right. Yeah.
did you want to be in that one? And can you be friends with, oh my gosh, I'm so glad
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
over.
But here's the thing is that none of it was were you just you because you're not
Right.
allowed to like because you don't know who you are yet, right? And like that's a big
Absolutely.
part of coming of age is trying to figure out, well, who actually am I and what do I
Right.
like and what am I into? And I fit into none of those. I was in no clique. It was me and three of my best friends.
Oh, that's
Period.
great.
End of story. And then we would cut school all the time and hot at the beach.
Oh, I was
So,
in with that crowd too. That was my
see, you were
sophomore
all over
year.
the place.
And I was cutting in classes and going to these malls and, got caught. Yes, and oh, this will be another kicker for you and the age difference here. So we had a dress code when we were in high school
Mm,
that we
hmm.
couldn't wear dresses that were above the knee. And I would always wear mine above the knee because I was thin and my legs looked pretty good. And so I got called down to the office, and then they make you get on your knees and they measure. Yes, they measured. They would measure and say, Jan, this is 2 inches above your knee. You need to go home. They would send you home or have your parents come bring you new clothes.
Oh
Can
my
you believe that?
gosh.
That is bizarre. Can you
Yeah.
believe that? Like,
Yeah.
really? Uh, yeah,
Yeah.
you lose
Well, I
that
mean,
nerve.
we had some dress codes and stuff. I mean, there were certain things I think we could and couldn't wear, but it was never like that, like that they, you know, would make
Oh,
us get on our knees
I
and
remember
measure it
my
with a
my
ruler.
geometry teacher would always send me down there, and I hated that woman. Oh boy. Oh boy. So I don't know. Do we have resources for people about this? This is what I'm just kind of spinning out in my head here.
Yeah, I was thinking about that earlier today too, and I'm not entirely sure what kind of resources to use for coming of age. I mean, I think, right, like our listeners aren't really people coming of age. So, you know,
I think that the message I would want to give people, if especially if they're raising children or going to
Mhm.
be raising children or have children, is really work with the kids to not shame them or
Yeah,
embarrass them about this process that goes on, and to really normalize it and to validate their experience, and
hmm,
feel like, so that they feel seen and that it's okay and
yeah,
that they don't have to be in any special clique, and that everybody changes and grows at different times, and
yeah,
that's just how life is, and we can't do much about
yeah.
it. But I think it has to do with a more of a parenting resource
I
than a
agree. That's
coming
where I
age.
was kind of going with that. Yeah, as we don't have listeners who are coming of age, but we have listeners who are, you like how I ha say we have listeners, like we have a whole like
Yeah,
group of.
yeah. Oh, hundreds of them. No, but the other thing,
But exactly right. Their parents, their grandparents, they're people who are living around. Like, I have a niece who's turning 18, a nephew who's about to turn 12, and one that's 15, a nephew 15, 30, so like I'm around teenagers and all of that. And I think listening and holding space for them and this idea that kind of like we touched on this, like you fit into this or you fit into this, but the reality is that one, we don't fit into any of it because we're who we are and we fit into
Mhm.
multiples, but two, allow them to fit wherever they think they need to or want to fit right now because it's not the end all be all. And when they
Right.
get older, that's going to change. And I'm going to say something that I think in is controversial in a lot of ways, and that is to talk about kids, teenagers specifically, in talking about being non-binary or
Yep.
trans and
Hmm.
all of that. And I think that, and I'm not going to go far into like the political discourse and that or anything, but I will say that because there is so much more conversation about that and those
Yep.
possibilities now than there were when we were younger,
Oh, for sure.
I think it's important to remember that when your body, that a lot of the language and conversation around it is, oh, I don't fit in the body that I have and I
Yep.
don't feel connected to it. And when you're a teenager and your body is changing, you don't feel connected to your body. You
You
don't
don't.
feel with it. And so while some of the people who are experiencing that are going to be trans humans and that is something that will hold for them. A lot of them also will not, and they're feeling that now and they're voicing that now. And I don't think there's anything wrong with holding space for that because they will reach a point where they're like, "Oh, okay, I do feel like I fit in my body." And so I think
So not to make a
shame,
decision early
yeah,
in
and not
is
to
what you're
like
saying?
push them
Yeah.
away from trying to express themselves and feel themselves because really all they're saying is I don't feel comfortable in the body. So what can we do right now where you're at to make you feel comfortable as your body changes, as
Mhm.
you grow,
That's a great
as you
point.
figure out who you are as a human? And I
Mhm.
think, we're so afraid of this idea. Let them be. Let them be
Mhm.
because they're not done cooking yet in their brain.
Yeah.
Like they're
No, for
still
sure.
figuring that out.
The brain is not developed fully until 22 to 24 years of
Yeah,
age. So
exactly.
making a decision like at 16 or whatever, but if holding space, I think that's really great, Patty. I totally agree with that.
Yeah, yeah. So I think that's the best we can do just in general is let people be, let them talk, let them share, hold space for them. And you
And
know?
also, if they're not going to talk to you, because some kids,
Yeah, there's that.
it's very, very embarrassed. They don't want to talk about it.
Mm-hmm.
Is tell them, there's other people. Like it could be
Yeah.
a gym teacher, not my gym teacher, but it could be an aunt or an uncle. It could be a therapist, or it could be, somebody who, like my husband talked to my sons about all of this.
Yeah.
And he really did sit him down and try to do that. Of course, they didn't talk a whole lot, but there's ways to get kids to feel free. Or maybe I when I was going to the Universalist UU church, I taught this coming of age program. Did I tell you
Right.
about this in
Yeah,
ninth
you
grade?
did. Yeah.
And so and the kids snickered. They were laughing,
Yeah.
showing pictures of everything from the body parts of the female, the male, and the menstruation and erections and sexual positions. And it was drawn. They
Yeah.
weren't pictures like pornography.
Yeah.
And it was so helpful because that was their introduction and they could ask a lot of questions and
Yeah.
they could really get that and from someone anonymous rather than their
Yeah.
parent. So
Yeah.
that was another resource that
Yeah.
because the UU church, most of them, I believe, do this. It's called coming of age. It's around in ninth grade that they do it.
Yeah. And I think that's a great point too of a lot like giving your blessing, for lack of a better term, for your kids or your grandkids to speak to somebody else and not get hurt and have your feelings be
Yes,
hurt if they're not talking to you because, oh my goodness, did you want to talk to your parents about
right,
some of that really intense
right.
personal stuff? You didn't. My niece came to me and talked to
Oh,
things, and her
nice.
mother teaches, human development and sexuality in college, and she still came to me because that felt a little less scary,
Right.
and that was great, great. I will answer any and all of your questions. And her mom wouldn't care. Like that's not a thing. Like great, you have somewhere to go. So yeah, encourage them to talk to somebody else. That doesn't have to be you, and don't
Yeah.
get too upset if they're not
Don't
talking
take
to
it
you.
personally. Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Kids need this,
Yeah.
that is so right on. I really want to end with that. Is that what you're saying is that kids, when they're going through puberty, they don't recognize their body. They aren't attached to it. They don't know
Mm-mm.
what the heck is happening.
No.
So
No.
anyway,
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's the way to go is just hold space for them and let them be because
yeah.
that's all we can do. So,
Yeah.
yeah. Well, this is great.
Well, thanks, Patty. Gosh, I guess we had a whole lot more to say than I thought.
We usually do.
Yeah. Okay.
All
Thanks.
right. Thanks, Jan.
Thanks for listening to the podcast. If you like what you've heard, please share it with friends, subscribe, and leave a review.
And remember, information shared on this podcast is not medical advice. If you have a concern about your physical or mental health, please seek support from a professional.
If you have a story you'd like to share about things your mother forgot to mention, you can apply to be a guest.
We'd also love to hear a quick 90-second thing you've learned in your life.
You can find links to both of those over at our website at
thingsmymotherforgottomention.com or in the show notes.
Thank you.